And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Farmageddon, a little card game for 2 to 4 players about running a farm and fertilizing plants, and best trying to score plants in order to get points. The game is from 5th Street Games by Grant Rodiak, and it is really quick to play. So real quick, why don't we just take a look at what you get inside this box and how the game plays, and then I'll come back here and give you final thoughts on it as a whole. Here you can see the setup for a 3-player game of Farmageddon. You'll notice that we have 3 planting fields out in the center of the table, and the game is mostly going to be about planting things to these fields and then harvesting the crops by fertilizing them enough in order to pick them up. In addition to these 3 fields, which will be the only fields available during the game, you're going to have a crop deck and an action deck, which you'll be drawing cards from in order to play the game. Each player is going to start the game with 2 crop cards and 3 action cards. And on their turn, the first thing they're going to do is draw 2 crop cards from the deck, adding them to their hand. At this point, they can do several different things on their turn, the most prominent of which is planting cards to these fields. So they're going to be planting crop cards, and they're going to look at what they have. They have 2 sassy wheats, which look like this, a grumpy melon, and they have some sluggo corn. Now, they're going to decide which one of these they'd like to plant out. Maybe they don't want to plant any of them, but they can plant as many as they want on their turn. Each card has different characteristics. Let's take a look at the sassy wheat. At the top left-hand corner here, you can see the value for harvesting this plant. It's going to be worth 4 points, and you need to fertilize it once before you can harvest it. If our player wants to plant this, they're going to pull the planting field towards them, and they're going to play the sassy wheat out on top of it. In this manner, they are now taking up one of the planting fields that the other players cannot use. And they need to fertilize this card at least once before they harvest it, and they can't harvest it on the same turn that they planted it. They could plant more of these if they wanted from their hand. Let's say they also wanted to plant their grumpy melon. They would pull this towards them and plant it on a different field. And now 2 of the 3 fields are taken up, preventing the other players from using them. On their turn, they must also fertilize at least 1 time. They can fertilize as many times as they want, and they're going to use crop cards from their hand in order to fertilize their already planted things. Maybe they'd like to fertilize their sassy wheat. It's now ready to go and can be harvested on their next turn because it's been fertilized the 1 time that it needs to be fertilized in order to harvest the card. They could also use their last card to fertilize the grumpy melon, which needs 3 fertilizations in order to be harvested, but maybe on their next turn they can do it 2 more times and harvest it for the 10 points. They can also play action cards from their hands, and they're going to start with 3, but they can play up to 2 from their hand in order to affect the way the game is being played, and this is where a lot of the interaction of the game is. So for example, we have Farm Futures, which allows you to draw 2 cards, or you can go ahead and examine one player's hand and steal any 1 card from them. So you would play this card, and you'd do the effect. And you can play up to 2 cards on your turn. Now there is one, Rented Land, which lets you have an extra field. Basically this goes out, it becomes an extra field, and when you've harvested from here, the field goes away and is gone for the rest of the game. There are definitely some cards that affect other players' crops. Some of them make them harder to harvest, some of them make them impossible to harvest for a time being until you get rid of them. We have Foul Manure, which says you cannot harvest, fertilize, or play actions on a specific crop, and you may discard 2 of your crop cards to get rid of this card. So these action cards are going to be a big interaction point for the game. After you've finished playing all of your cards, planting and fertilizing whatever you'd want, making sure to fertilize at least 1 time, you're going to draw 2 more action cards and add them to your hand, and play is going to pass to the next player, who is then able to plant, or fertilize, or play actions, just like I showed you previously. Each player is going to be competing for these different 3 fields, hoping to get a hold of them, maybe kicking other people's crops off through the use of action cards, taking the crops for themselves by stealing them using action cards, and just generally trying to fertilize them enough to score points in order to be the winner at the end of the game. Now, the end of the game will occur after you've gone through the entire crop deck, and the last player who draws a crop card is going to get to play out that turn. Everyone else will get 1 more turn, and at the end of the game, which is after everybody else has gotten their extra turn, whoever has the most points in their scored crop pile, their harvested crops, is going to be the winner. And there you have it. That is Farmageddon by 5th Street Games. Now, the designer of this game himself warned me that I was going to hate this game, and I'm pleased to say that he was wrong. Now, I don't love the game, and I've told the designer that, and I've told the publishing company that I don't love this game. However, I don't hate it. What the game does offer is 1, some great artwork on the cards. The artwork is fantastic. 2, it offers a very, very light gameplay, but it's lighthearted, it's simple, and it plays quickly. And that's what, if you're going to have one of these light random games, you want that lighthearted quickness to it. So the back and forth, the screw your neighbor aspect keeps the game interesting. The names and the artwork on the card keeps it fun. Now, if you're looking for a deep strategic game, I'd definitely say avoid Farmageddon, but if you're looking for something light just to kind of round out a gaming night, check the game out. It's not too bad. It's one that I can at least recommend for light fun, and one that you should at least take a look at for the artwork alone.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.